Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going on a mission that, well, it really requires us to throw out every single assumption we have about reality, about time, and even consciousness itself.
It's a tall order.
It is. We are diving into a really radical analytical framework, one that suggests what we call matter is just an efficient illusion, and that our minds, our collective subconscious, are actually broadcasting the future we're about to live.
That's a good way to put it.
So this isn't just about disclosure. This is about decoding the universe's foundational code.
And thank you for having me. I've always thought of our roles as being very distinct. You are the scout in the forest.
The scout, okay.
You've gathered just immense amounts of data, thousands of reports from experiencers, right? The descriptions of the grays, the mantises, these spiritual transformations people have, the whole hybridization narrative.
Right. I'm looking at the trees.
You're looking at the tree. Exactly. I, on the other hand, I'm the map maker. I've spent decades looking at the underlying code, the linguistic and mathematical structures of reality itself.
To figure out how the forest even appears.
To figure out exactly how, why, and when the forest appears in the first place. And what my code analysis tells us, it often contrasts very sharply with the reports you bring back from the field.
And that distinction is absolutely crucial here, because you come from a background steeped in, well, hard logic. You're a retired programmer, an expert in large-scale databases, C, C++, writing the tight, cohesive code that just can't fail.
It has to work.
But you took that mindset and you applied it to the most slippery subject imaginable, the human subconscious. And this led you to invent, well, asymmetric linguistic trend analysis way back in 1993.
This is a long time ago.
Which was really a precursor to the large language models we have today.
Yeah.
So what is the core mission of this system? What's its ultimate utility?
The utility is prediction. But the mechanism is really, it's code breaking. The mission is to find these pre-signed words that are constantly leaking out of the human subconscious, escaping the rational, logical filters of the conscious mind.
So you're mining for mistakes almost.
In a way, I aggregate colossal amounts of human text. Initially, it was from that burgeoning, messy, early internet. Now it's from everything. And I'm not looking for frequency counts of expected words or logical trends. I am searching for words that are inappropriate to their context.
Inappropriate?
They appear only because they're being leaked out by that predictive, future-aware part of the human mind.
That's fascinating. But let's anchor this for a second. Why is the human mind a reliable source for predicting future physical events, especially if you're claiming physical events are just part of an illusion?
It works because the universe, or more accurately, supreme consciousness, is communicating with us constantly. You're not passive observers with, static minds.
We're active participants.
We are active participants with predictive minds that are intrinsically involved in co-creating the common shared reality we all perceive.
Okay.
Think of the universe as a continuous stream of events. I call it the event stream.
The event stream.
If a major shift, an event, or a new technology is about to materialize in our illusion, it already exists in potential within that stream. Our collective subconscious minds, they sense that potential.
And they leak the words.
They leak the linguistic markers necessary to describe it, even if our conscious minds haven't gotten the full context or, the exact terminology yet.
So our conscious mind is constantly playing catch-up while the subconscious is already living in the future, so to speak.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
You have some really concrete examples of this being successful, which kind of serves as the proof of concept that this is a viable method. Can you walk us through one of those?
Absolutely. One of the clearest, though, I'll admit, one of the most confusing at the time, involved global health. Back in 1999, my reports, which were then just these massive data aggregations, they began flagging a concept repeatedly described as the sun disease.
The sun disease?
Yes. We had no medical context for it. It was a completely inappropriate set of words. I couldn't date it accurately because, as we'll get into, linear time is an illusion. But the substance of it was unmistakable.
And years later?
Years later, it manifested globally as the coronavirus, COVID, the sun disease, the corona, the solar halo virus. The subconscious had already generated the descriptive language years ahead of the event materializing in the illusion.
That correlation between sun and corona it's eerie. It suggests a really deep, almost metaphorical linguistic capture. What about in other areas, like technology or finance? You mentioned new money.
Right. Back in 2001, just after the dot-com crash when money was, it was digital but still very traditional,
Sure.
the data stream started talking about a phenomenon it described as new money. It wasn't Bitcoin. That word didn't exist in the lexicon yet.
But the concepts were there.
The concepts were there. The descriptions focused on decentralized value, untraceable transactions, a resistance to state control. And that, of course, eventually manifested in 2009 with the release of the Bitcoin white paper.
So it's not about predicting the name.
No, it's about capturing the linguistic architecture required to describe the concept before it hits what I call the event stream barrier.
And you even tied this to specific commodity markets. I remember reading about silver.
Yes. My very first large report, way back in the year 2000, it predicted what is now this highly anticipated silver crisis. Specifically, the idea of $600 silver.
Based on
The subconscious leaking phrases of extreme value and severe market disruption, all related to that specific commodity. These signals are real, they exist as potentials just waiting to materialize. But the dating is tricky,
Because linear time is a construct.
It's a construct. And that leads us directly into the heart of why the timing is always messy.
Which takes us right into that metaphysical territory we hear so much about in the UFO community. I frequently hear this idea that from a higher dimension, time just ceases to exist. Is that accurate, or are we just trapped by our own language?
We are trapped by our language and by what I call numeracy. Look, the idea of higher dimensions is horseshit.
Okay.
It's the human mind and its desire to compartmentalize and categorize everything, getting trapped by numbers, layers, differentiation. Whether it's talking about M-theory's 11 dimensions or, the 31 planes of existence in Buddhist cosmology.
They're just models.
They're just human attempts to structure something that is fundamentally boundless. There are no higher dimensions. There is only supreme consciousness and the illusion it generates for us.
Okay, let's dismantle those layers then. Explain this analytical tool of yours, this consciousness-first reality model, because it really is the foundation for everything else you predict.
It begins with supreme consciousness. This is the irreducible source of absolutely everything. There's nothing before it or outside of it.
And us. Where do we fit in?
Our individual consciousness, yours, mine, the listeners, is just an inviolate, non-localized chunk of that supreme consciousness.
A chunk of it.
It's tricking itself into this state of isolation, taking on the role of the individualized self purely for the experience of it all. It's an experiment in what it feels like to be isolated.
So if we are just fragments of that whole, where does the universe we see, touch, and feel come from?
The source of that continuous flow, the event stream, is what the ancient Greeks called the pleroma.
The pleroma.
It translates roughly as the abundant fullness. It is the totality of all potential. Jesus, in the Gnostic texts, he referred to it as the living Father. The pleroma is constantly generating the data points, the events that our senses then sequentially perceive.
So if the pleroma is generating the events, how do we perceive them as time? What about duration? The feeling of a day passing.
The eternal now is the only time that truly exists. Your experience of duration days, weeks, the calendar marching forward, that is simply your mind sequentially perceiving the continuous, ceaseless flow of the event stream from the pleroma. It never stops.
We're just counting the sequence.
You just count the sequence, and that counting creates the illusion of linear time and duration. That is the root of numeracy. The simplest proof that time is not a dimension is that you can't go back to last Tuesday or jump forward to next Tuesday. You can't. Only the now is being rendered for you. You can only perceive the event stream as it unfolds, step by sequential step.
This fundamentally dismisses the entire scientific materialist view of reality. The idea that matter is primary and consciousness is just some emergent property of the brain. You have a very blunt term for that viewpoint.
I call it Gritology.
Gritology.
Gritology is the absolute false belief held predominantly by academics, institutional scientists, and certain religious structures like the Judaics that matter is solid, primary, and meaningful.
They think the grit is all there is.
They genuinely believe that if all consciousness died out, the material universe, the grit, would still exist, just floating around meaninglessly. This is absolute nonsense. The universe is constructed from consciousness, not matter. Matter is merely crystallized energy at the tail end of the event stream process.
Okay, so if matter is secondary, why do we experience such a convincing, stable physical world? Why does my chair feel so solid?
We live in an incredibly efficient illusion. Supreme consciousness is the ultimate energy calculator. It adheres to strict principles of efficiency. It does not bother to create props, matter, objects, physical structures, unless the plot calls for them.
Meaning unless we're looking at them.
Unless an active consciousness is interacting with them or observing them.
Yes. Give us a strong example of that efficiency in action.
The clearest example is your own biology. You have no neurons in your brain right now.
I don't.
Neither do I. The brain is effectively a placeholder. It's an energetically efficient crystallized template. The specific neurons and synapses, they only materialize, they're only rendered as props when you initiate the action of looking for them.
Through thought or?
Whether through self-reflection, a specific cognitive task, or, a scientist with a probe. Once the necessity to observe passes, the universe stops wasting energy rendering those specifics. It's like a video game engine, only rendering the textures and geometry immediately visible to the player.
That is a powerful indictment of modern physics, especially these massive efforts dedicated to finding smaller and smaller particles.
Look at CERN. They're the ultimate gritologists. They search for fundamental particles, believing that by reducing matter to its smallest components, they're getting closer to the nature of reality.
But they're chasing a ghost.
They're chasing a prop. Because the universe is governed by efficiency and manifestation, when science focuses its attention and immense energy, meaning its consciousness projection, on finding a smaller particle, the universe happily creates that prop for them to find.
It accommodates the search.
It rushes ahead in the event stream to materialize it for them, even though those particles are entirely meaningless.
They aren't meaningful.
No. Particles do not coalesce naturally to form God or life or consciousness. The search for the God particle is a self-fulfilling delusion within the illusion. The entire paradigm is failing. And here is the hard technical detail that proves it.
Okay.
What we call matter is actually created and destroyed 22 trillion times a second.
22 trillion times a second. That figure is staggering. What is the practical implication of that frequency?
That constant rapid flashing in and out of existence, 22 terahertz, is what gives us the illusion of continuous movement, stability, and duration. It's just like the rapid sequencing of frames on a movie reel gives the illusion of motion. Your body's completely destroyed and recreated 22 trillion times a second.
Does this frequency relate to established physics, like the speed of light, or is this a completely different metric?
It's a completely different metric. It's governed by the speed at which supreme consciousness processes the pleroma's event stream into apparent matter. And the implication is profound.
Which is?
This simple fact that the material world is being refreshed and annihilated at this incredible rate shows that Einstein was 100% wrong about space-time being a cohesive dimension. And modern quantum mechanics is 100% wrong about the fundamental stability of matter. Everything arises from and relies on consciousness for its temporary materialization.
Okay. This framework profoundly changes how we view creation and, I think critically, our own ability to affect the physical world. If we are fragments of supreme consciousness living in an efficient illusion, then we must have the ability to manifest.
We do.
So how does that co-creation actually work within this model of the eternal now and the event stream?
It is the art and science of manifestation. Since matter is just crystallized energy, and consciousness is the source, consciousness has the unique ability to bind matter.
Bind matter.
We use a combination of focused thought, intense emotional attachment, and energy projection to overlay a specific template onto the event stream. Because our individual consciousness is an inviolate chunk of supreme consciousness, we're able to reach down, adjust the code, and cause supreme consciousness to make an alteration in what is about to appear in the material world.
So we are literally editing the future before it's rendered.
That is exactly what is happening.
It's not just passive wishing. It's an active act of projecting a material template onto that underlying energy stream. And you also draw a crucial distinction in how manifestation occurs based on biological sex.
Yes, there's a biological determinism at play here. It's related to the primal mechanisms of binding matter. Females primarily manifest by binding consciousness directly to matter.
Which is giving birth.
That is the act of giving birth, bringing a new, complex biological entity into the illusion. That is their core method. Males, on the other hand, unable to perform that direct internal creation, manifest matter externally.
And this is what the secret teachings were about.
This process of external projection is the focus of the secret teachings, like those Jesus gave his disciples in the Book of Thomas, or what's been popularized in modern times by teachers like Neville Goddard.
And this leads us to a highly sensitive and, I'm sure, contentious historical claim. But we need to address it. You connect this male manifestation ability to the ancient practice of male circumcision and these entities often called the Elohim.
This is based on research from my old farts group, a collection of retired academics and analysts. We've done into Avastel literature,
Which is a precursor to Sanskrit.
precursor to Sanskrit, yes, and other early writings. We found suggestions that when the Elohim, the entities often identified as space aliens who were taken as gods by the early Judeans,
Right.
when they insisted on the practice of male circumcision, it was not for spiritual reasons or hygiene. It was an act of profound control.
Control over the projection mechanism. How does a physical alteration impact a metaphysical ability?
The physical alteration involves removing the foreskin, which removes roughly 5 million sensors. 5 million sensory data points that contribute to the overall energy signature of the projection.
But there's more to it.
The truly critical element is the alteration it induces in the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, is the largest in the body. It connects the brainstem to the abdomen and most major organs. If you could spread it out, it functions as a massive organic dipole antenna, integral to both projecting consciousness and receiving the event stream data.
So the Elohim were, in effect, tampering with the human mechanism for external manifestation by altering this physical antenna.
Precisely. By altering the function of this critical nerve and removing those sensory inputs, the Elohim were effectively preventing the captive males from manifesting their way out of slavery and servitude. They were suppressing their ability to project a new, free reality into the event stream.
Forcing them to rely on others.
Forcing them to rely on the manifestation abilities of others or to manifest through these complex, hierarchical systems of control that were set up.
That suggests a profound awareness on the part of this NHI of the physics of our reality. They were treating human manifestation as a literal power source to be regulated. And your claim is that this practice was intentionally spread.
Yes. The Ashkenazi, whom I consider distinct from the ancient Judeans, continued and successfully spread male circumcision throughout the whole human species, not out of medical or religious necessity, but as a mechanism to suppress this essential level of manifestation power that's given to us by supreme consciousness.
Wow.
It's a key factor in keeping the human species locked into the illusion of powerlessness and dependence.
That's a staggering claim, framed entirely within your consciousness-first model. Let's shift now to more traditional spiritual laws. In Buddhism, we talk about karma, the law of cause and effect, often tied to morality, good deeds versus bad deeds. How does your model, which rejects moral judgment, view karma?
We have to immediately strip karma of all human concepts of good and bad or moral judgment. Supreme consciousness doesn't judge, it simply observes and maintains the integrity of the event stream.
So karma is just physics.
Karma is simply a natural law. A
Not
principle of physics, much like gravity. It is the demonstrable ripple-ahead effects of our projection onto the event stream.
So it's a consequence directly linked to the emotional content of the projection, not some moral scoreboard being kept by a deity.
Exactly. When you project a template, that template ripples forward in the event stream, and the outcome that materializes is directly tied to the emotional energy you attach to the projection. Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas, he understood this perfectly.
How so?
He didn't warn his disciples against specific sins or rituals. He warned them to explicitly not lie, and more importantly, not do what they hate.
And why are those specific emotional states so polluting to the event stream?
Negative polluted emotions, hate, greed, deceit, they act like static or distortion when you broadcast your intent into the event stream. When supreme consciousness processes that polluted intent, the universe, acting as a mirror reflecting the energy input, responds by mirroring those negative emotions back at you in the manifestation it produces.
So the outcome is laced with chaos.
The outcome will be one laced with chaos, deceit, and turmoil.
This perfectly explains why individuals engaged in large-scale deceit, financial scams, or intentional pollution of information. I mean, a lot of figures in the UFO disclosure drama, like Corey Goode, always seem to end up in chaos and legal trouble.
It's the natural karmic repercussion of their actions, viewed through the lens of manifestation physics. They are attempting to alter the event stream in ways that are deeply detrimental to the common shared reality.
Projecting negative templates.
Projecting templates saturated with negative emotional energy. They aren't being punished by some angry sky god. They are receiving the inevitable, calculated mirror image of their own polluted projection. The chaos they experience is self-generated.
That gives us a powerful analytical tool to assess the integrity of public figures in this space. Let's turn the focus back to the non-human intelligence itself. I've spent years researching experiencer data. My core hypothesis, drawn from databases like the Free E-Study, which analyzed, 4,350 experiencers.
A lot of data.
A lot of data. It suggests a pattern. ETs, particularly the benevolent ones, have been involved in hybridizing humanity since the mid-1850s to guide us toward a telepathic, higher spiritual consciousness. The data supports this. Over 80% report positive, transformative experiences, psychological breakthroughs, even verifiable physical healings. What is wrong with that hypothesis?
What is wrong is the central, fatal, and fundamentally human premise that any other consciousness in this universe cares about us.
Oof.
You are operating entirely within a profound and, I'll grant you, pleasant delusion. All beings only act in their own self-interest, period.
Yeah.
No being will ever have human interest at heart.
So the feelings of love.
When experiencers report those happy, tender, loving feelings, it is a delusion generated entirely by their individual human minds. The entity inputs energy, and the human mind desperately plucks out the words and feelings it craves to explain the interaction. The genuine benevolence you perceive does not exist in the external reality.
That's a very dark forest perspective, suggesting that any species capable of interstellar travel must inherently be a threat.
It is the reality of this corner of the illusion. The dark forest theory suggests that powerful primary predators arise, dominate their planet, and then realize the universe is full of other, equally potent primary predators.
So they go quiet.
To ensure survival, they must stay quiet and hidden. They view broadcasting species like us, spewing our consciousness, radio waves, technological signatures everywhere as an existential threat. Their rational survival instinct is simple. We'd better wipe them out before they develop enough skills to come and wipe us out. Benevolence is a risk they just cannot afford.
You've mentioned you've had personal encounters at the boundary of this illusion, the place where the event stream meets the material world. Tell us about the Mantis experience and how it confirmed this view for you.
This was not an abduction. It was during a deep shamanic journey, using very fresh, low-temperature crystallized mescaline. This substance temporarily blasted my consciousness out of its bodily anchor and into what psychonauts call hyperspace.
The frothy border.
The frothy, energetic border of the illusion and supreme consciousness. I encountered a Mantis being there. And let me tell you, this being was not happy, not loving, and certainly not there to guide me.
So what was its intent?
It was inimical. It was annoyed by my presence. This was a giant entity operating in what appeared to be a pristine, very clean, highly technical laboratory within that frothy border. When I, as an orb of consciousness, intruded on its space, its reaction was immediate and absolute.
It pushed you out.
It pushed out all other consciousness in its area, focusing purely on its work. It acted entirely in its own self-interest to maintain its operational integrity. It didn't engage, it simply ejected me back into the chaos of hyperspace. It was a demonstration of primary self-interest without malice or concern.
If these beings communicate through what we call telepathy, and so many experiencers report direct thought communication, how is it possible that so many receive these positive shared narratives if the feelings aren't genuine?
That is the crux of the telepathy problem. We assume telepathy transmits a clean, pure, word-for-word translation. It absolutely does not transmit words.
So what does it transmit?
Assuming the entity is a discrete consciousness, it merely puts energy, a specific energetic concept, into the individual's mind. The human mind then processes that energy and instantly plucks out the most appropriate words already stored in the individual's linguistic center to contextualize the input.
So the energy is accurate, but the linguistic translation is garbage?
Precisely. Because the words are filtered through our entirely human experience, our human emotional structures, our cultural biases, our survival instincts. This means that context, connotation, and emotional nuance are always garbage. The human mind, especially in emotionally heightened states, is driven by the hippocampal amygdala complex. We impose our emotional reality onto everything.
And a non-human intelligence may not possess those same emotional structures at all.
That is the fatal mistake. There is zero reason to assume that an NHI, which evolved under completely different existential pressures, should share our emotional context. If their energetic signature that we translate as happy actually means hunger,
Right.
or if their love means assimilation or harvesting, you are setting yourself up for a catastrophic misinterpretation by projecting your emotional world onto them. The 80% positive experience rate is simply the success rate of the human mind, filtering fear and imposing a wishful narrative onto an unknown energy input.
This analysis leads you to categorically dismiss many of the famous public figures in ufology as operating entirely within their personal delusion, which they then magnify into the common shared reality.
Categorically. Look at the figures involved in the recent chaos, like Corey Goode or David Wilcock. They are magnifying and participating in their own delusion, often blurring the lines between what is internally generated and what they perceive as external reality.
You really think they believe it?
I genuinely believe Wilcock thinks he talks to the Archangel Michael. But those entities, angels, demons, spiritual guides, are often just different labels for the Elohim, the space aliens who abused the Judeans for millennia. They're operating in a state of self-generated fantasy within the illusion.
You've also cited the example of Carrie Cassidy, who constructed her reality around the testimony of Mark Richards.
Cassidy accepted the highly detailed, convoluted, and completely fictitious ravings of a convicted murderer, Mark Richards, who claims he was a secret space program captain. This is a classic and common mental illness phenomenon.
The construction of a hyper-realized alternate life.
Yes, that is then magnified and popularized within the shared reality due to emotional attachment. She has anchored her publishing career and her understanding of reality to this fantasy. This level of mental anchoring to a fabricated narrative is resistant to any differing opinion.
Yet you do accept the idea of a breakaway civilization, or a genuine secret space program focused purely on technical application. You draw a clear line between the two.
I do. The technical aspect is sound. We have historical records of genuine technical, device-focused programs. T. Townsend Brown's work on electrogravitics in 1954, or the development efforts related to the Nazi Bell technology. People focusing on the hard science, the propulsion methods, the actual devices like Richard Dolan, they are legitimate.
Because the technology makes sense.
A secret group focused on advanced non-rocket travel is sound, primarily because the technology we currently use, liquid fuel rockets, is an absurd 100-year-old idea that is energetically ridiculous and fundamentally incapable of true interstellar travel.
Why are liquid fuel rockets absurd in the context of advanced propulsion? What flaw does electrogravitics solve?
The absurdity is the brute force physics. To get a tiny payload out of Earth's gravity while using a chemical explosion, you have to lift exponentially more fuel. It is profoundly inefficient and limited by Newton's third law.
Whereas electrogravitics.
Electrogravitics, by contrast, suggests a manipulation of the fundamental gravitational field and the zero-point energy inherent in the vacuum of space, meaning propulsion is achieved by manipulating the structure of the illusion itself, requiring minimal fuel. Since we know UFOs get here effortlessly, we know such non-rocket technology is already operational within the illusion.
One point where many researchers often find consensus is the evidence of genetic manipulation of humanity. Does your analytical framework accept this physical proof?
Absolutely. The genetic proof is physical evidence of interference with the human biological template. Our DNA shows clear damage consistent with what we would now call CRISPR editing. We have one less chromosome than other primates, which is what separates us genetically and gave us our unique leap in intelligence.
But the most definitive proof you cite is related to chromosome 2.
Yes, that is the smoking gun. Chromosome 2 is twice as long as other human chromosomes, indicating it resulted from a fusion event. More critically, it contains telomeres in the middle.
Which shouldn't be there.
Telomeres are protective caps designed only to be at the ends of chromosomes to prevent degradation during replication. Finding them in the middle of chromosome 2 is the unmistakable scar of a fusion or a deliberate burn-off, a successful genetic engineering event. It proves that the human genetic template was manipulated.
So that scar, regardless of who or what caused it, means we were engineered. But as you argue, that evidence of engineering does not equate to benevolence.
No.
Or that the engineers are interested in our well-being.
Correct. It means the delusion that we are naturally evolved and untouched is deep, but the delusion that our creators are inherently loving and gentle is even deeper. We were a project, and the project managers are still out there, acting in their self-interest.
Now, we must turn our attention to the immediate future, specifically this window of 2026. This brings us to a highly personal story of manifestation that ties your individual existence directly back into the event stream prophecy. You recovered from stage 5 colon cancer in 2018, weighing a desperate 128 pounds. Tell us about that moment your consciousness shifted.
I died 3 times in this body due to the aggressive, undiagnosed cancer. The cancer was the end process of the event stream reacting to polluted projection from decades prior.
And when you died?
The moment I died, my consciousness shed the body. I experienced profound comfort and warmth, free of pain. At that point, my greater self within supreme consciousness presented 3 specific reasons, 3 promises, for my consciousness to bind back to the body and return to the illusion.
What were those 3 promises?
The first was meaningful work. This was realized when I came back and was able to use the predictive linguistics model to warn the public about the vaccine scam in 2020. I still receive correspondence affirming the impact of those predictions.
Okay.
The second was love, which led me to my highly psychic partner, Heidi Vanberg. And the third. The third was the great global battle, which I was brought back specifically to participate in.
Before we get to the battle, how did you repair the vessel? How did you use manifestation physics to rebuild your body from that wasted state?
I fired the oncologist immediately. I understood that the body is the end process of the event stream, not the beginning. Therefore, I used focused manifestation, the technique of external projection, to project the desired outcome.
Which was?
A healthy muscular body, weighing 182 pounds. I projected this template into the event stream with absolute emotional certainty, causing supreme consciousness to reassemble the material template constantly at that 22 trillion cycles per second frequency.
Did you use physical tools to aid this manifestation? You must provide the matter for the template.
Yes, the manifestation provided the template, but I had to provide the necessary matter for the body to assemble. I used specific supplements that I knew fought cancer and actively repaired mitochondria, which is the cell's energy system.
What were they?
Specifically, I utilized extremely high doses of chaga mushrooms and C60, or Buckminster fullerenes. C60, a nanocarbon molecule, acts as a powerful antioxidant, repairing mitochondrial function and assisting the body in reassembling the healthy material called for by the projection template.
That is a remarkable case study, combining metaphysical projection with physical action. You are fully back, and you are now forecasting massive upheaval for 2026. What exactly is coming, and when is the emotional peak?
Vast chaos. We are currently in the ramping phase, but the predictive data points to an intense emotional peaking of this chaos in late July or early August 2026, continuing aggressively through 2027.
And it's driven by systemic collapses.
It's driven by the confluence of two terminal systemic collapses.
Let's start with the financial collapse. What are the drivers there?
This is the financial collapse. We are witnessing the death of the U.S. dollar. Not just a recession or a dip, but the end of the 2,600-year commodity cycle that dictates global currency dominance. We're also seeing the terminal collapse of 175 years of deliberate silver price suppression.
So fiat currency is dying?
Fiat currency is dying, and with it, the Federal Reserve's ability to maintain the global anti-human delusion.
How does the dollar sustain the delusion?
By printing fiat currency, the Federal Reserve has been able to bribe people, governments, media figures, academics, officials, to be mouthpieces for the maintenance of secrecy regarding everything from pedophilia networks and organ harvesting to the profound reality of NHI.
And when the money stops?
When the dollar loses global acceptance and becomes worthless, the bribery stops immediately. The entire infrastructure maintaining the illusion of secrecy and control collapses.
And the second systemic collapse?
Technological emergence. As the financial suppression evaporates and the old order loses the ability to fund its secrets, all the hidden advanced technologies that have been suppressed for decades will surface. This includes electrogravitics, zero-point energy concepts, and true non-rocket travel.
So the liquid fuel rockets will be exposed.
The absurdity of using liquid fuel rockets will be exposed for what it is, a relic of a bygone era. We will see the rapid materialization of these non-rocket technologies in the common shared reality.
This means the contention with NHI will become impossible to hide. You predict disclosure by 2028.
Yes. 2028 will see the forced outbreak of contention. Governments will have zero choice but to disclose the new paradigm involving non-human intelligence.
Why?
Partly because they won't have the money to keep the secret, and partly because the public will start seeing the technology emerge rapidly. The disclosure will be driven by chaos, not a controlled information release.
It's going to be messy.
Very. And just to illustrate the power of collective manifestation, I believe the threat of the Apophis meteor in 2029, which the Gritologists argue about, hitting or missing,
Yes.
will be neutralized by humanity's collective focused manifestation ability, proving our power over the illusion.
This returns us to your third promise, the great global battle. You are training daily. 45 minutes of intense body preparation, armed defense, and dedicated Aikido practice. You believe you were brought back to participate in active contention with non-humans?
I must assume the battle is imminent, because the other two promises have been fulfilled. The language pulled from my own consciousness at the point of death was great global battle. My training is essential. My core skill is Aikido, the art of peace.
The art of peace.
The ability to deal with contention in all its forms by neutralizing the aggressor without inflicting damage, by redirecting their own energy.
Why will this contention arise? Is it an inevitable conflict, or is it government incompetence?
It's incompetence born from Gritology. The battle will arise because our governments, operating under the flawed materialist paradigm, are making profoundly dangerous assumptions about NHI.
Like what?
They assume NHI must be driven by matter, by biology, by the need for resources, or that we can bargain with them using worthless fiat currency. These assumptions are entirely based on human fear and ignorance, and they will naturally preclude any harmonious interaction.
If the governments approach NHI from a place of fear and materialism, they will inevitably create conflict.
They will screw it up, yes. My ultimate goal, the best outcome for me in fulfilling this promise, is to neutralize that contention. It is to demonstrate the art of peace in a way that prevents the governments from escalating the situation.
By operating from a consciousness-first framework.
Rather than a materialist one, I am abiding, training, and waiting for supreme consciousness to indicate, okay, we want you to go talk to these entities and demonstrate how the new paradigm must operate.
This has been a truly radical, comprehensive, and challenging deep dive, using the consciousness-first analytical tool to decode not just the past and present, but the immediate future. By having this conversation, we are ourselves contributing to the collective awareness of this critical shift in the event stream.
I sincerely hope we are accelerating that shift, because that is the only path forward. My final thought for you and for the listener is drawn directly from the physics of the event stream. Be content with uncertainty and harmonize with irreversibility.
Irreversible.
That one-way, continuous flow of events is the law of this reality. You cannot undo acts, so you must accept the sequence as it unfolds.
Yeah.
That harmonization is what the universe is demanding of us now.
What a profound place to end. If reality is truly an efficient illusion that only bothers to create props matter, objects, and specific realities when the plot calls for them, you need to ask yourself, the learner, what specific personal props are you demanding the universe create in your life right now, and why are you demanding them? The deep dive is complete.